What's going on, party people? Well, Shameless has been one of my favorite shows over the past decade, and this past weekend it came to a close. Its 11th season wrapped up with its series finale on Sunday, and now I'm here to talk about the entire show. I've never talked about this show on this channel before, so I'm hoping a lot of you guys are closet Shameless fans. We're going to have some great conversations down in the comment section below. So this is going to be all 11 seasons of the show, ranked worst to best. Does need to be said that the first 4 seasons of this show are the only seasons that I have watched more than once, so I was a little bit cloudy on some of the details of earlier seasons. I had to go back through and watch some recaps, look at some bullet point plots, and so I've arranged them based off of the storylines of the seasons that stand out the most in my memory, the ones that I enjoyed the most, the ones that I look back on and laugh at the most. And with that being said, number 11, the worst season of this show, in my opinion, is season 10. This is the previous season, the first season without Fiona, the first season without Emmy Rossum, basically leading the show as far as I'm concerned, and the show really suffered after that. If I'm being honest, my number 10 and my number 11 are just about tied. I really don't like either one of these seasons, but this one stood out to me as being a lot more painful to get through. I had hoped that the show was going to be able to kind of revive itself a little bit, maybe giving Fiona a break on the story. We could focus more on the other characters that haven't really got to risen up as a character that much, but this season proved that they could not do it without her. The only real 2 main things about this season that stood out to me in my memory is that you have Mickey and Ian finally getting married, which was a long time coming. Their storyline, as characters, they're great as a couple. Their storyline has just been dragged out throughout this entire series, though. So even by the time you get to it, I really didn't care. And then you have Lip and his girlfriend Tammy having a baby, so now Lip has to be this father. He has to be the patriarch of the family. He has to not only look out for his brothers and sisters, but also look out for this new family, trying to figure out what his relationship is with Tammy and how he's going to raise his kid Fred when they start off in an RV. And really, beyond that, that's all that really stood out to me. I remember watching this season, and by about episode 3, I was just gritting my teeth every single week because no episode really felt like it picked up, never really felt like it shined, never really felt like there was anything stand out about this season. And with Fiona gone, a huge detriment to the show is that Kevin V basically are an entire separate show. They might as well be in an entire different storyline. They have almost no ties to the Gallagher storyline whatsoever, and they're amongst my favorite characters. So season 10, gigantic disappointment, and as of right now, it is my least favorite season at number 11. Just above that, maybe a razor-thin difference at number 10 is the final season, season 11. A lot of the same problems as season 10. Without Fiona there, without Emmy Rossum leading this show, carrying it on her shoulders, the flaws of the show just are brought up to the surface. No storyline, no character development, no arc really stood out this season. I kept holding out hope that they were going to find some really nice ways to close out this show. There was going to be a lot of feels going on. There was going to be a lot of throwbacks, a lot of closing storylines that was going to make me emotional since I've been with this show from the beginning. And it had one of the worst season finales and one of the worst series finales that I've ever seen, to be honest. It's a show that wrapped up, and with the exception of Frank, spoiler alert by the way, I'm probably going to get a little bit of details. If you haven't watched the last season, skip to the next number. With the exception of Frank finally succumbing to death, through COVID-19 of all things, no other character in this entire series got any kind of closure. No other character in this entire series got any kind of finished arc. They even begin new arcs in the series finale that they don't even bother to carry through with. Is Carl and his cop partner gonna buy the bar? We don't know. Is Lip and Tammy gonna go on and have this new kid? We don't know. Is Debbie gonna go off with this crazy ass bitch that's introduced in the last 2 episodes absolutely randomly and start a new family? Or is she gonna abandon her daughter since she seems to not give much of a shit about her? We don't know. Every single character aside from maybe Ian and Mickey, knowing that they're going to be okay at their little apartment, they're just left hanging. How the hell do you end a show with 11 seasons running without giving any closure to the family? I didn't expect it to wrap up cleanly. I didn't expect their family to suddenly be the most happy people in the world and they were just going to win the lottery, but it's just Jesus Christ, all the storyline that you built up for these characters, not only in this season, but as series-long arcs, they're just left floating in the wind. I Hated the finale. Beyond that, one of the main struggles of the season is that you have Lip and a couple other family members that are really passionate about selling the Gallagher home and moving on to their own separate lives and finally like moving on past this, relying on each other's shit. And then you have Debbie that is just the most despicable character in this show, and you're gonna hear that a lot in this ranking probably, just constantly going against him. And so the entire main storyline, the main struggle of this final season about one family member wanting to get what's best for everybody and the other family member doing everything she can to just shit on that person, it made me want to choke her out through the TV. So very little that I like about this season. It felt like it was a little bit easier to get through. I felt like I was looking forward to seeing where it was going slightly more than in season 10, but like I said, as far as I'm concerned, these are both number 11. Now for reference, those two are the only two seasons of this show that I would say are just legitimately bad seasons. From here on out are all good seasons to amazing seasons. The next 5 or 6 are pretty close as far as I consider them. These are all good seasons. Not standouts, not amazing, but nowhere near as bad as season 10 and 11. And coming in at number 9 is season 8. Now this is a season that I remember mostly as Fiona really starting to be the boss of her destiny, where she becomes a landlord. There's, a couple of struggles that she has with her tenants. There's a dead tenant at one point. You even have Lip having this whole struggle with his professor and mentor character really going off the rails, and Lip kind of realizing the horrible sense of the disease of alcoholism, and eventually that character's death. The professor was a really nice kind of character arc, kind of a growth for Lip to go through. I loved the whole scene where, this season starts off with all of the Gallagher members trying to sell off Monica's meth after she died, and Fiona's the only one that wants nothing to do with it, and she tells all of them it's gonna be bad, you're not know what you're doing. The scene where she gets to just make them eat shit and is like, I was right, now tell me I was right, you. That was awesome. I loved Kev going off to meet his biological family. That whole line about, I'm Bart from Kentucky, made me laugh my ass off at the time. And the other big part of this season that's pretty notable is that Ian kind of becomes this Christ-like figure. They call him Gay Jesus, to where he's kind of fighting the power and going against church treatment of the LGBTQ community. And despite totally understanding the importance of that storyline, I did feel like that got a little bit over the top, a little bit silly. So that was not really a plus. That was kind of a little bit of a detriment to this season for me as far as how they portrayed that storyline. But probably the biggest standout of this season, which was a storyline that I did enjoy, wish it would have went all season long, was Frank actually being a good dad for a change. Going out, getting a social security number and getting a bank account and getting a job and actually being there for his kids. He falls off the rails by the last, act of the season, which was disappointing. But for the 7-8 episodes that we went along with that was probably the most enjoyable Frank storyline since the first 4 seasons for me. Season 8, overall, enjoyable, good season, not amongst the best. It's number 9. Coming in at number 8 is season 9, the final season with Fiona, and that's honestly the only thing that puts this above season 8 for me. After my top 4 seasons, Shameless was, pretty much hitting the same amount of pluses and minuses. It was pretty much kind of treading that line of being just good, but not really reaching the heights of the seasons that we used to love. And progressively each season just took like maybe an inch away from how good that season was. But the emotional impact of Fiona's final season, this huge rise and fall and then rise again in the last episode that she went on in this season, really does make this one stand out for me. She's going for it. She's trying to be this smart investor. She's trying to, lay her balls on the table and try to actually make it out of this situation for a change. She bites off more than she can chew and just has this entire dismantling of her character to where she basically becomes Frank. And it was gut-wrenching. It was the most gut-wrenching thing that we've seen from Fiona since season 4. And the way that she finally got out at the end, where she had that investment that she kind of forgot about and didn't have any hope that it was going to come through, finally gets $100K at the very end. And when she goes around and asks all of her family, especially Ian, she wants them to say to stay. But when Ian says, you need to leave, you need to get out of here, you deserve it, you need to we'll be fine, go. So emotional as a fan of this character and of this series. And when she says goodbye to everybody, when she says goodbye to Lip and she walks and gets onto that train, man, it's hard to hold back tears. And then you add that little sprinkle on top, that cherry on top of the sundae, to where she leaves half of her money for her brothers and sisters and just takes half of it to go to her new life. Man, in hindsight, I wish they would have just upped the money that she got, and that would have been the series finale, that she finally got everybody what they needed. She goes off to her life, she leaves them like $200,000 or whatever, and now they can go off and do all the shit that they were teasing that they were going to do at the end of season 11. But nonetheless, Fiona's exit I thought was a very good overall storyline for her. Other standouts in this season is, Lip becoming an AA sponsor, and especially the scene where he just comes down on Fiona because she accidentally got his sponsee drunk is just acting prowess. I love that scene and scenes like that where Fiona has to really be kind of put in her place a bit. Other than that, all the other characters really didn't do a whole lot. They kind of spun their wheels, which unfortunately drops it down to where it is. Number 7 is season 6. So the whole storyline with Fiona and Deb kind of feuding, where last season we found out that she was pregnant, and we'll get into that when we get to that season. Fiona gets pregnant, and the way that they deal with that and battle each other to where Deb keeps the baby, Fiona has an abortion, and just that whole sisterly / mother-daughter role that they kind of go back and forth with, especially when you really dislike Debbie as a character and you really want to like Fiona because she's at least my favorite character of the show, or always was, and you see Debbie keep her daughter but Fiona abort it. It's crazy how the show kind of toys with your emotions a little bit. But beyond that, we do get kind of relegated to the typical Fiona storyline where she's pursuing a guy that's not very good for her, leading all the way up to a wedding that gets ruined by Frank in classic Frank style. But the big standout of this season, the reason why, honestly, aside from just enjoying those storylines I just told you, that it is a little bit more memorable for me personally, is that song, The F Word. That was a badass scene, and that is a badass revenge song. Number 6 is going to be season 7. This is the season where Fiona really starts to kind of go for her own dream, starts to really take care of herself, where she starts to become a business owner. She becomes manager of Patsy's Pies, falling out with, the marriage, falling out completely because of Frank in the last season, and then eventually buys the laundromat across the street and starts to really bust her ass to get ahead in life, which is great to see her after this 2 or 3 season arc where she's just starting to go downhill, finally start to have a little bit of an upswing. And then you also have probably the most memorable storyline for me in this season, where you have Kev and V having this 3-way marriage relationship with Svetlana. Comedy gold. Whenever you have Kev reacting to this situation, it is just amongst the funniest stuff that this series has ever provided. Amongst the other storylines, you have Frank, who has disowned pretty much his entire family for throwing him in the river at the end of the last season, except for Liam, kind of teaming up with him and creating this homeless shelter, which was pretty entertaining. Then you even have the storyline where, Lip is starting to hit rock bottom. Now that Fiona's on an upswing, he's hitting the bottom of his little curve where he's succumbing to alcoholism and is just self-sabotaging everything in his life. And he's just such a compelling actor and character that's just as compelling as when you see Fiona go down those little downswings. All leading up to Monica finally returning and succumbing to this brain, I don't remember if it was a tumor or some kind of a brain disorder, but she dies at the end of the season, which is kind of a bittersweet moment because she's a pretty despicable character. They make you hate her from the very beginning for the first 2 seasons when she shows up, but you do understand that these characters also, their mother just died. So it's that complicated, like, do we hate the fact that she's dead or do we love the fact that she's dead? And it's an emotional spot in a turmoil sense to leave the family in at the end of the season. So it does stand out to me as being a pretty memorable season overall. Coming in at number 5 is season 5. So this is the season where it's all aftermath mostly from the events of season 4 in a lot of the character sense, where you have Fiona is trying to rebuild herself. Now as far as up to this point, she is at her rock bottom, to where she's going after random guys. She's dating this guy, Gus, who's a musician, just marries him out of absolutely nowhere. Jimmy Steve comes back for one episode, which not really a standout part of this. I almost wish that he would have just not come back at all. I think it was a stronger way to end his character story, but nonetheless, it was a fun episode regardless. And then you have this whole thing where Carl's a drug dealer. Lip starts fucking his professor. That was awesome. I mean, it was ill-fated as hell, and it really it sends him off the deep end in the following season when that whole thing blows up. But that was pretty fucking cool, just to have him walk in and be like, yeah, I want to fuck you. And she's like, yeah. Kevin V kind of start to split up in this season, and they're separated at a certain point. I thought that was actually really engaging because I love those two characters. I love them together, and you're like heartbroken at just the thought of them not being together anymore. Like Fiona's reaction when V tells her is like the audience reaction, like, what the fuck are you doing? No. You two, you're together forever. You're not allowed to break up. Frank having this relationship with this terminally ill doctor and all the wild, crazy exploits that they get into where she just wants to go out and do meth and do coke and do all these things that she never got to do before because she was the good girl and now has terminal cancer. That was a lot of entertaining and pretty dark shit. And this is also the season where Debbie goes from the sweet, innocent, likable child that still cares about Frank, and you're just like, oh, you're so innocent as a kid. You just don't understand how ill-fated your love is, but I can't help but love you for it, to becoming the most despicable character on this show. This is the season where she decides out of absolutely nowhere that, yeah, I want to have a baby, so I'm just going to rape this guy. I'm just going to pick this random dude from school that likes me, and I'm going to rape him and get pregnant. And it's just, from that moment on, that just continues to be her character, is just somebody that makes the most ridiculous, idiotic, bratty, selfish, despicable choices continuously. And I hate the fact that they did that to her character. Like, you have this family, they're supposed to make stupid ass decisions that you hate them for doing that once in a while, especially when Fiona does it. But when Debbie does it and just continues to do it and just has no remorse whatsoever throughout the rest of the series and just continues to get more despicable, why destroy a character like that? We don't need a character to hate in Shameless. That's supposed to be the balance of we love them, but they're so ill-fated that makes us love them more. Debbie, the antithesis of that. Now we're at number 4, and from here on out, these are all top tier Shameless. These are by far the best seasons of the show. You cannot go wrong with really any season from here on up. But I do have my preferences, and number 4 is going to be season 2. Now, season 2 continues a lot of what season 1 did. That's the biggest thing that you could probably criticize it of, is it's just more of what we got in season 1. But season 2 really upped the drama. Season 1 is very comedic. Season 2 is, again, very comedic, but it has some really shocking moments here and there, most notably the attempted suicide of Monica. And just like when she dies, just the turmoil that she brings to this family, and especially Fiona whenever she shows up. They're saving money in the squirrel fund the entire season, and Fiona just wants so much to believe that her mother has changed, and this time it's going to be different, so she lets her in and trusts her one more time, only to lose all of that money. And the scene where Lip just rips into Fiona for drinking the Kool-Aid is one of the standout scenes between those two characters. This is also the season where you really start to get the beginning of, what do they call it? Galavich, Ian and Mickey. Their whole relationship really starts to bud in this one, where they were just kind of mostly fooling around in season 1, if I remember correctly. And then as far as Lip's storyline, you get a lot there where he's dealing drugs out of an ice cream truck with Kevin, which is hilarious. Those two characters and their relationship is awesome. It's one of the biggest crimes in season 10 and 11 why that was not like a core part of the show anymore. And then you have this whole thing where him and Karen, I mean, I think the paternity was always kind of up in the air, but presumably Lip and Karen have this baby that's a special needs child, and now there's that whole dramatic sense of, oh great, now we're both kids that have no business having a child, and this child needs way more than a regular kid. It's just a lot of drama. A lot of that extra piece of Shameless started to show its head in season 2. Number 3 is going to be season 3. Now, this was just an awesome season. I remember watching the premiere episode of this, and just from the moment that Lip and Ian were just running out of this little military depot, I was like, this is going to be a great season. And it is. This is the season where, again, that drama just gets turned up. The main storyline being Frank trying to, show his ass, and calls CPS and leaves this anonymous tip about the Gallagher living situation. And so all the kids get stripped away from Fiona and go to different foster homes. And so the whole season is her trying to get them back. And eventually, after finding out that it was Frank, in a great scene, she goes into court and fights for custody and eventually wins, which is just this huge, awesome, victorious moment for fans of the show and for the characters. Just, you know, her finally getting kind of the credit that she deserves as their mother, their older sister, but their mother in every single way. And that really makes the season stand out. A lot of great comedy in this season as well, and also some very dark moments. I mean, you have Lip starting this relationship with Mandy Milkovich, which I still wish we could have got back to that at some point. I'm not really a big fan of Tammy. But you have that relationship, and then Karen just poking in her fucking venomous little head every once in a while, and then Mandy just eventually gets tired of it and just runs that bitch over. Woo! That was crazy. And then we also get Jimmy Steve as like a main part of the Gallagher family at this point. He moves in, he's a part of the family, he's a part of the household, and he has this whole storyline going on where his kind of illegitimate wife's mob boss father is threatening him the entire season, breaking his fingers and shit, all leading up to the finale where presumably he gets killed, and I think that should have been the ending of his character. But nonetheless, a lot of crazy shit going on in season 3. Season 3 was that perfect mix that we got between the comedy and the drama, and they never quite hit that mix again. Now for my top 2, these are very hard to decide amongst, but I think I'm pretty much in popular, company here. I think most people would have these 2 in their top 2, but we'll find out in the comment section, won't we? Number 2 for me is going to be the first season, the intro season to this crazy ass Gallagher family. And you can't help but be nostalgic for season 1. If you're a fan of this show, I mean, if you're a fan of any show, you're nostalgic for season 1. But this show, just that world building that we got right out of the bat with all of the different characters and finding out how each of them tick and just being introduced to this really different style of humor that is so dark and fucked up, but you just can't help but laugh your ass off at, and you're like, should I be laughing at this? That's Shameless. That's its bread and butter. And season 1 was probably the most comedic season. There wasn't a whole lot of drama in season 1. There was some, but after season 1 is where they really started to try to mix the two, where season 1 is genuinely just like a pretty hilarious black comedy. And just knowing all these characters for the first time, just getting to know Ian and Lip and their relationship, and like the whole scene where Lip was getting blowjobs from Karen, so he brings his brother Ian, who he presumes is, toying with his sexuality when he's 100% gay, trying to get him a blowjob under the table, and the chase scene that ensues with Karen's father, hilarious. The whole relationship beginning between Frank and Sheila, who I don't even think I've talked about in this ranking, but she was an awesome character. The show definitely lost a little bit of magic whenever Joan Cusack left the show, but their whole crazy-ass, sadomasochistic sexual relationship is hilarious. And really just getting introduced to Fiona and how she takes care of this family. And I believe it was in season 1 where Monica comes back and tries to take Liam away, and that's really the strongest part of drama you get here, and it just shows how tight-knit these kids are, that they're not going to let their parents destroy what they've built with each other. Season 1 is awesome. Season 1 is damn near flawless, but there is one season that's better. And my number 1 is season 4. Season 4 to me is definitely the darkest season of this show. It's the most dramatic, it's the most emotional. There's still comedy, but this was where drama definitely overtook the comedy. And while on paper that might seem like a weird risk when it's a show that really is just hinged on laugh out loud moments, season 4 is just incredible from start to finish. This is the season that really shows you the mortality of Fiona. It shows her flaws. It shows that she is this godlike matriarch for this family, and God bless her for all these things that she's done, but she's still capable of fucking up, and she fucks up huge in this season, and it just guts you as a fan of the show. The shining light of hope in the family is now the main problem of the family, from her having this little 3-way relationship between her boss and her boss's dick-headed, drug addict, convict boyfriend, and it's just like, what are you doing, Fiona? Why would you make that decision? That's a Frank decision. That's a Monica decision. What are you doing? The whole scene where Liam accidentally gets into the cocaine and you're not even sure if this character is going to make it, and it just kills you down to your core. Lip having to take over as the leader of the family while he's in college and just takes everybody away from Fiona because she's just in no shape to hold the responsibilities of these kids anymore. And even the whole season-long storyline about Frank facing his mortality in his own way, to where his liver is failing him and he's quite literally dying the entire season. It's the first season that really makes him face his decisions, face what he has done to his life, and look at death for the first time. I thought for sure, I would have bet money that he was going to die at the end of this season, but in true Gallagher style, he just keeps on ticking. But the whole storyline with Sheila trying to get like this black market organ, and they pay for this surgery, and all they do is take more organs from Frank and leave him there. That, oh my God. Talk about on the floor laughing. And then the whole storyline with Mickey finally really realizing and owning up and actually embracing the fact that he loves Ian, and the whole scene where he tells everybody, including his father and all of his family, he's like, walks out, he's like, hey, I'm fucking gay, and it just starts this whole bar brawl. That is great. Season 4 is flawless from start to finish. That is prime Shameless, and it raised the bar so much and held a standard that was so high that, as good as some further seasons are, this show never quite reached those heights again. Season 4 is my number 1. So what do you guys think of Shameless, and what is your ranking of the 11 seasons? Have you been a fan of this show since the beginning? Were you late to it? Did you just now start it? Hopefully you didn't just watch that whole thing because you just got the whole show blown for you. But let me know your ranking down below, your favorite seasons, your least favorite seasons, and reasons why. Don't just give me a list. Give me some details. We can talk about details, can't talk about numbers. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button. You can check out all my other rankings and reviews and all the other content on this channel that I guarantee you will enjoy. Thank you for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.